Hello and welcome. I'm going to go through Pemulis Map Maker's Create Parcels Along a Frontage. I'm currently running version BriskCAD v23 and Pemulis Map Maker version 1306. Let's start the application. First thing it does is prompt for you to select the entities that make up the frontage. It can either be individual entities, which is the default, or just a polyline. So in this case, I have individual entities. I can select those entities. I'll hit enter, and then it prompts for the side to create the parcels on. I want to create them on this side. First thing you'll notice is that the application is modeless, meaning you can go inside of the CAD area and run commands or pan and zoom. So let's talk about the dialog. On the upper left-hand corner is a button to view a tutorial similar to this one. The second button over is to pick 2 points along the frontage and calculate those distances. I'll just pick 2 points. So that distance is 25.5 roughly meters. And then on the upper left-hand corner, the frontage parameters, which we've already defined, but if you want to start with a new frontage, you can do that. And we show the color of the frontage in blue. You can select any color you want. And if you do a redraw, it'll repaint using that color. The next section down is to define a starting point. I'll show that in a minute here. Then there's the angle relative to the frontage, which is the lot line angle. It can be either a fixed angle or relative to the frontage. Most cases that lot line angle is perpendicular, which would be 90 degrees. And then we have a frontage offset distance, and that is used to calculate these frontage offset length and area calculations. Let's go ahead and use the parcel requirements in the middle of the dialog, and we're basically looking for an area that's roughly 400 square meters with a frontage length of 15 and a depth of 30. I'll just pick the Create Requirements button. Well, let's just do a little calc here. So let's say we have a frontage of 15 times 30. That gives us an area of about 450 if those numbers are used. So generally you want to have your frontage depth and frontage length to be very close to the area that you want to calculate. You'll notice that we filled into the spreadsheet. We've created some ghost images that represents the parcels, and these are just ghost images. So a zoom and a pan or a redraw makes it go away. You go back to the dialog, hit the draw, or if the dialog is minimized, in other words, you pick on the command line, the dialog will minimize, and when you come back, it'll display itself and redraw. If you ever lose the dialog, you do like a minimize. It's down in your drawing area, and then you can just alt back up. So let's take a look at some of these parcels. Maybe we'll just zoom out first just to see what it created. Okay, well that's sort of interesting. Maybe that's not exactly what we want. This subdivision already had a set of parcels defined. It looked like they're roughly about 700. So before we change this, let's just talk about the data in the spreadsheet. I'll give you the button on the upper right-hand corner of the dialog to toggle off the top part of the dialog. So to give you more space to work with in your spreadsheet. So first thing is the lot number. The lot number is a function of the project that you can add those parcels to. So if I pick a different project, I pick the first one on the list, it'll renumber based on the next available parcel number. Then the next column is the lot area. Again, I'll minimize that dialog. So we have numbers that are close to 400 and a frontage length of 13 and a lot length of 30. Those are pretty close to our desired numbers. We give you these advanced tools, which is if you hold down the Shift key and pick inside the lot area, you can see the iteration of calcs we've done based on your minimum and maximum values for the area, frontage length, and the depth of the lot. So I'll just scroll down here and you can see we've calculated almost 600 just for that first parcel. So one little trick that's helpful is to narrow down the selection of minimum and maximum. So if 400 is your desired area and you don't want to go down to 200, take this number fairly close, and if your maximum is, let's say, less than that, then do the same thing, and then I'll do a create from requirements. So at the bottom of the drawing area, you can see where it calculated the values. So we have numbers, again, very similar to what we had before. I hold down the Shift key and pick inside the lot area. Now scroll down, we only have 185 iterations that we work from, and these are provided so that you can select different requirements. Using those minimum and maximums, you can decide decide that I want 400, but I don't want frontage length of 8 and a depth 50. So let's just scroll down. So here's 9. So I'm going to scroll down until I get past, let's say past around 12. 400 would give us lot depth of 33 as opposed to 30. You can see how that works. So let's say here's 13 and 31. I'll select that. All I have to do is double click and that will become that parcel's definition. When we do that, because the first parcel is also affecting the subsequent or the next parcel, so when I change that lot line length to the second parcel's lot line length will also change so that they're connected properly. So the other thing I can do is if I change, you'll notice I can't actually edit the values inside the lot area. If I want to choose a different lot area, it's a function of the frontage length and the lot depth. But what I can do is if I want to change the lot length, let's say we make this 15. So we're going to hold the next parcel's second lot line, and we're going to take up that difference of the first lot's frontage length in that second parcel of the subsequent parcel. So they were both 13. I added 2 out of the second parcel. And for the lot lines, you can do the same thing. You can type in a value, let's say 33. If I make this 33, notice that the second parcel's lot line 1 will also change. Everything else after that is just calculated. The frontage, offset, length, and area, maximum width and depth, minimum and maximums are calculated as you make changes. The other thing you can do is for the frontage length, I can hold that shift key down again and pick inside the frontage length cell. And now I can graphically define where that frontage is. Let's just say we say nearest this point right here. So again, the difference is made up in the second parcel. You can't extend beyond it. And we can do the same thing with the lot line length. I'll set this back to 13. So they're about the same. They are the same frontage length. Now the lot line length, if I want to, I can hold the shift key and pick inside that cell. I can pick a location, let's say endpoint, and I'll pick on that back of lot line. And that's 35.05. That's the depth. And let's do the same thing for the lot line length 2. In this case, I'll say perpendicular to the line, and you can see you can basically build your parcels as you go along. But you generally want to start off with desired areas, frontage length, and lot depth, and set those in your parcel requirements. Let the application tell you what that looks like, and then make your changes as you go along. One thing you'll notice here is the frontage, offset, length, and area could not be calculated. It's a question mark, and I'll show you why it is that way. Let's pick lot line 1. I'll hold the shift key down. I'll pick in this lot line 1 length. If I pick over here, we can calculate it. But if we pick over here, the frontage, offset frontage length doesn't actually intersect that lot line. And that's what's happening when I pick on the existing boundary line right there. It's just this offset line is not actually extending into it. If I zoomed in enough, we can see that. You can see it there. Okay, so let's make some changes back to our design. These, looking at the numbers here, they're roughly 700. So let's make this desired area 700, and I'll make my minimum, let's say 600, 700, and maximum, let's make that 800. And for our frontage, let's go with a minimum of 13, 15, and let's say 20 is max. And our depth, looks like we would like something closer to 35, so let's make the minimum 30, maximum, going to make that, I'll leave that at 50, that's fine. And then let's create the requirements over again. And we can see how it's changed the values, the lots. So 35, so this lot line depth is 41. So let's do our calculation again. So we have 15 times 35, that's 525 roughly. So these numbers should be closer to that 700 number. So if I take 700 divided by 35, I want a frontage length of about 20. So let's make this frontage length 20 and then recalculate again. And we have something that looks much better. And of course, we can go down and enter in precisely the values we want. And again, if you hold the shift key down, press in the lot area, you get a dialog with the calculations that we've done using the minimum and maximums for area, frontage length and the depth of the lot line length. And if you want to pick an item out of that list, it's just a matter of just finding the one you want, double click, and we'll assign that one. And we'll tell you what it looks like and give you the calculations for the frontage, offset, length, and areas, and depths and widths, minimum and maximums. Okay, great. Let's take a look further down here. What's it look like? Okay, so it didn't calculate anything past this point right here. So let's ask it to add another lot. And it did. You'll notice that it exceeded the frontage length requirement. Frontage length shouldn't exceed 20. So it's highlighting in red that it had to do that in order to put that lot in there. If you look at it a little closer, we can see that it had to go past this curve return in order to calculate an area that's close to our 700 and at the same time meets our lot line depth. Now, if you pick the Create from Requirements button, it will not. That's why it stopped at this location. It could not put in a parcel that met the requirements. So this is the way to extend beyond, go past that minimum and maximum limitations when it does its computation. So let's hit the plus button and put another lot in. And this one's frontage length of 13 and lot depth. And since that's the extent of our frontage, if we ask it to put another one in, it can't, because there's no, we're down to only 0.36 of unit in order to display the, or to put another lot in. Let me go through changing the starting point. So if I change the starting point, so I define that frontage, but let's say we want to start here. And I'll pick a side again that the parcels are created on. Let me just do Create from Requirements again. And you can see that the parcels are created starting at that point that I selected. Okay, great. So, and anytime you want to keep the parcel linework that you've created, again, just select how you want those to be put into the drawing. So as polylines, lines and arcs, or just the lot line itself, however you wish to have that done. I'll just say the lot lines, for example. And then you just pick the button, Add Parcels to Project. Oh, let's don't do that. Let's just insert the line work. And then I can see there's the line work. Again, that's just the lot line. I'm going to select those and erase them. Let's exit this for the moment. And let's take a look at, anytime you do something that might eliminate what's in the spreadsheet, we prompt to make sure that you do indeed want to do that, as opposed to just wiping out everything and then having you start all over again. Okay, let's say yes. Let's take a look at another example. So here's a cul-de-sac, and it'll have similar problems to what this other line work had. I'll start the application, pick. In this case, it is a polyline, so I'm just going to select the polyline option. I can tell which side I want to start on. So let's say we start over this side of the cul-de-sac. And because this one's in English, then let's change that offset distance. And let's just calculate how many parcels we can create using the default values. So let's just zoom in here for a second. All right, so it stopped again because it got to the curve return and it can't go past that with a minimum frontage length of 35. So let's add a new one. And you can see it got to 60. And if I want to change that length, so it's 150, let's see what 130 looks like. And you'll notice that when I pick on a frontage length, lot line length, when I pick in one of those cells, it'll highlight in this highlight color what we're looking at. So again, you can pick a different color. Just do the draw, and when you pick inside that cell, it'll use that color. So 60 is fine. Let's keep going around the cul-de-sac ball. So this one's a depth of 40. I'll hold the shift. Let's just do it. Let's make it 30. See what that looks like. Again, we got below our minimum desired area, so it highlights it in red. Above our maximum desired frontage length, so we'll indicate in the spreadsheet for you those values. Let's just continue on, moving around the cul-de-sac, hitting plus. And let's just see. Okay, now what's going to happen? It's calculating the values, and it found that it had to exceed that frontage length in order to put a lot in that's close to our desired 7,000 square units. And then let's just keep adding lots as we go around. I'll make this frontage 35. That changes our minimum, our lot calculation, and hit plus. And we have one more, and let's hit plus. And it wasn't able to put one in because it uses the current cell that you're hitting the plus in. So it can't have a frontage length of 60 because there's only 24.8 remaining. So one way to get around that is you can, let's say we make this 30. We can add another one. And we have 4.8, let's say. So if I want to go to the end, I can go. And of course, as I showed you before, if you pick in a cell, so we're dealing with this lot right here, highlighted in yellow. So if I want to change, let's say the frontage length from 60, what if it goes to, I'm going to use the endpoint, see where endpoint is of those. So maybe I use midpoint between those on this segment. And you can see then how that change would be reflected. It changes the area calculation, and probably our depth of lot doesn't look right. One other interesting thing to use is the first command measure. If I type in measure command, I can select an entity and I can put points along the entity at certain intervals. So let's say we want to do it every 30 units. And I'll hit PD mode. I like X's, and then PD size. Let's make it 5. Do a regen, and you can see they're a little bit bigger. You go back to the dialog and do a draw. So maybe we could use those as snap points if you want to have the frontages defined at those locations. So let's take the first one, frontage length. I'll hold the shift key down, hit inside frontage cell, and I can pick node and pick that point. And now I'm connected to it. So that was 30, and of course this next one is 30 because we set them at 30, lengths of 30. All right, so if you want to edit any particular cell, you can either type in that cell, we make this 35, or you hold down the shift key, you can graphically define where those locations are. Same thing for the lot depths, the length of that lot line. At any point that you like your design, just simply either insert it as line work in the drawing or add it to the workspace as a project. And that's a quick overview of Create Parcels Along a Frontage. Thank you.